It feels like the world is getting noisier and noisier, and it's becoming harder and harder to stand out. The way trust is built, especially online, is changing. When people say, oh, you need to create loads of content, the more AI generated content that's out there, the less weight content will have on someone's buying decision. Most of you listening to this will probably have had work through a referral before. Referrals aren't a strategy, they're a signal. They're a signal that somebody trusts you. We then need to find a way to amplify that trust and make it more predictable. And that's where the second part comes in, which is welcome to the Creative Courage Podcast. My name is Matt Essam. If you're new here, this podcast is all about growing a fun, profitable, creatively fulfilling studio without the grind. Today's episode, I want to talk to you about a fundamental shift that I've seen happening in the creative industries. And it's all about how you find and attract clients. You probably would have to be hiding in a cave to not hear about AI. It's everywhere. And so is this concept of content creation. And I don't know about you, but it feels like the world is getting noisier and noisier, and it's becoming harder and harder to stand out. And so one of the things I've noticed over the last decade of coaching award-winning studio owners, people that are top of their game, like ex-Disney executives, lead designers at Spotify, is that they still struggle to attract their dream clients consistently if they make this fundamental mistake that I'm going to talk about today. So there's a common belief that being good at what you do and have a strong enough portfolio is kind of enough to get you clients. And it is to a certain extent, but it's not enough to get you the right kind of clients, the kind of clients that you want to crack the champagne open for, or sing from the rooftop about, or feature on the front of your portfolio. And there's a fundamental reason for that. What I've noticed when I've been coaching these studio founders, when they have these breakthroughs where they're able to consistently attract their dream clients, it's they stop trying to chase attention. So I think online, we're taught a lot that it's all about attention, right? It's all about getting your ideal client's attention. And it's easy to start dancing around for the algorithm, or spending hours and hours creating content, or sending cold DMs to your prospects, hoping that you'll get their attention with your portfolio, or someone you've worked with in the past. And what most people miss is that it's not actually about the attention. It's about the trust. It's about the trust that we build with our ideal clients. Now, most of you listening to this podcast will probably have had work through a referral before. And it's usually the best kind of work, or should I say it's the best kind of sales conversation. It's not always the best kind of work, because sometimes you get stuck in this place where the wrong kind of clients refer you to other people, and then you're kind of stuck in this place where you can't break out of that cycle. But the sales conversation itself is usually pretty easy. There's no convincing. It's a pretty kind of simple, straightforward conversation, and they're bought into you and what you do, usually if the referral's been done well, before they get to the call. And so if you think about why that is, it's not because they've spent hours and hours consuming your content. It's not because they've spent hours looking at your portfolio. It's usually because somebody they already trust has said, you need to work with this person, or I really need to introduce you to this guy or this girl, right? That's the reason why they're coming into this pre-sold, because they trust the person that has told them that they need to work with you, or they need to have a conversation with you. So people think that referrals are not a great way to win new business. And that's true, and it isn't true. It's true because they're unpredictable. And so we don't have any way of controlling the flow of work, which can be really problematic in a business. But it's not true in the sense that a lot of the hard work has been done for you. A lot of the trust building has been done for you. So one of the things that I've been saying to my clients recently is that referrals aren't a strategy, they're a signal. They're a signal that somebody trusts you, that somebody has bought into you and the way that you work. And so what I'm trying to convey in this episode is that the way trust is built, especially online, is changing. And so our job as creatives is to really listen for that signal. When we get that signal of trust, we need to break it down and deconstruct it. And so most of the agencies and the studios that I coach, they are stuck because they aren't very good at understanding how something works when it works. And I know that sounds a little bit patronizing, but they've been doing their craft or they've been running their business for such a long time that it's often very subconscious. Things just happen naturally. And I remember this for myself. Like when I got really good at marketing and I got really good at kind of design and positioning, I just did it automatically without thinking. And then when I brought on new team members, it was really hard to train them to get to the same level that I was at, not just because I had more experience and more time, but because I wasn't actually conscious of how I was creating that result. And so when I say creative founders aren't very good at understanding how they actually do something, that's what I mean, is like they're not conscious of how they get that referral. So when I say listen for the signal and deconstruct the signal, what I mean is pay really close attention to why that person is referring you. Like, what is it that you did? What were those steps that gave them the confidence to go out to their network and say, you have to have a conversation with John, with Melissa, with Fred? Like, what is it that you actually did? How did you build that trust? How did you get to the point where they felt confident enough referring you to their network? And see if you can reverse engineer that, because that's what makes a strategy predictable, is if you can continue to do the same steps over and over again. So the first piece of this jigsaw that I want to talk about today is understanding that fundamentally the reason people work with you is because they trust that you are going to be able to get them a specific result. And they trust that because somebody else has given them that confidence. And so it's like we're borrowing somebody else's trust. And so the way I see it is like there's two ways to build trust. You can create loads of content and put people in your funnel and constantly be in front of them all the time, which eventually does build trust, but there's still some skepticism. And this is kind of where the first part of the conversation came in around AI, is that the more content that's out there and the more fake content that's out there and the more AI generated content that's out there, the less weight that content will have on someone's buying decision. And the more weight a personal referral will have. So this whole episode isn't designed just to say, okay, go and get more referrals. There's a kind of third or second part to this episode, right? So we're listening for the signal. We're listening for where trust is already being built. That's part one. Part two is we then need to find a way to amplify that trust, so it's not constantly just like hoping someone's going to refer us, and make it more predictable. And that's where the second part of this strategy comes in, which is finding people who already have the attention and the trust of your ideal clients and building relationships with them and earning their trust so they put you in front of those people or that audience. And this has been the biggest shift for me personally in my business, and also the biggest shift that I've seen with my clients, is when they find one or two people who have a network of their ideal clients that already know, like, and trust that person in control of that network. And they spend their time building a relationship with the person that controls that network, not one-to-one with the people in that network, right? So the metaphor that I use is it's a little bit like going to a house party. Imagine like going to a house party and you vaguely know the host and you're kind of rocking up cold, you don't really know anyone there, and then trying to make friends with people. Like, you can, but you might make friends with 2 or 3 people that night, right? You go around, you introduce yourself to some people, depending on how good your introduction is and how interesting you seem, will probably dictate how many people, want to be friends with you or want to stay in contact with you, right? But it's a very manual process. You could say going to a networking event, but I'm using like a metaphor that's kind of slightly out of the creative space. So you go to that house party, you don't know anyone, you're going around introducing yourself cold, you're trying to build that trust from scratch, and you're trying to build it manually one-to-one. Now contrast that to knowing the host of that party very well. And even if you still just went and did it one-to-one and you said, oh, I'm best friends with the host, who they already know, you've already got another level of trust with them that you wouldn't have as a complete stranger. So you've already bought into the trust that they have with somebody else. Now go another level up and imagine that host actually introduces you to everyone, and maybe they introduce you to everyone at the same time. Like they do a little toast. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for coming. By the way, I just want to introduce you to my best friend, Dave, and he does X, Y, and Z. And like, he's an amazing person because of these reasons. Throughout the rest of the night, everybody now knows who you are. Everybody trusts you because that host vouched for you, right? So I think this is the new way that people are going to decide who they want to do business with. They're going to look for people that they already trust, that have already spent that time building the network, and they're going to look for recommendations and referrals within that network rather than cold. Because I don't know about you, but I am bombarded with ads every single day on various platforms, and they all promise the world. Like if I see one more, we'll get you 20 clients in the next 90 days or you don't pay, I am just going to stop using social media altogether, right? It's like there are so many promises. Like I can promise you this result that you want in this time period, right? Or like you don't even pay us. Well, it sounds like a really compelling offer, but why should I trust you? I don't know who you are. And trust is becoming harder and harder to earn. And so the strategy that I'm currently using with my clients is, rather than trying to go one-to-one, rather than trying to do this whole thing of like building up this audience from scratch, spending hours and hours grinding, creating content, hoping that the content's good. Because by the way, when people say, oh, you need to create loads of content, like it assumes that we are good at creating content. And most of us, we're creatives, so we're good at a skill set. Like we're good at branding and design, or we're good at filmmaking or photography or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're automatically good at creating the kind of content that actually attracts clients. Like that's, in my experience, I've been working in marketing and advertising for over a decade now. In my experience, that's a whole different skill set. Like you need to understand copywriting, you need to understand storytelling, you need to understand the deep desires and pain points and frustrations and symptoms of your ideal clients. Can it be done? Absolutely it can. And I think it's good practice to learn those things, but don't wait, because you're going to be waiting a long time. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years now. I've been putting out content for 6 or 7 years, and I'm only just building an audience which is engaged enough and big enough for me to kind of sell to and put offers out to, and people actually respond, and I've got a good reputation in the market. But most of that's actually come from the people that I've partnered with. It's come from borrowing the trust and the credibility of other people's audiences and putting valuable content in front of that audience and being introduced to that audience by that person and being associated. And if you think about, again, a bit segue here, but if you think about branding, it's this idea of association, right? Like, what do you associate that person or that thing or that logo to? And so the work that I believe we have to do as creative business owners, especially if you're really good at what you do, like your portfolio is really strong and the work is like, wow, it's amazing. If you can then couple that with introductions to your ideal clients by people that they already know, like, and trust, your business will grow exponentially. But more importantly, client acquisition will be on easy mode, and it will be inbound, and it will be pre-sold, just like referrals are. And so that's the strategy that I'm focusing on. And that's the strategy that I'm focusing on with my clients in these next 12, 18, 24 months, because I believe it's not about the attention economy anymore. It's about the trust economy. And rather than trying to build trust from scratch, which is extremely hard because the barrier to entry is so much lower these days, I think our main objective should be to build relationships with people that already have that trust with our ideal clients. And so then we only need a handful of relationships, a handful of really strong relationships, to then get in front of hundreds, maybe thousands or tens of thousands of our ideal clients. And so I believe that's the leveraged, networked way. And that is what I am going to be focusing on for the foreseeable future, because I do really think that trust and the way that we build trust has and will drastically change. If you found this podcast valuable, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody who maybe is struggling with lead generation right now, somebody that's struggling to find clients, someone you know is good at what they do, but still doesn't have that consistent flow. My name is Matt Essam. This has been a solo episode of the Creative Courage Podcast. Thank you for listening.